Good morning, pals. Welcome back to 100 Miles, 100 Days on a $100 treadmill. I'm Tanya, and today we're going to talk about, we're going to finally get back to talking about the concept art from Snow White, and we're going to take a look at what's going on in the parks, and we'll look at where I'm at with those felt patches. So, if you want to take a walk for about 20 minutes, why don't you join me? Let's take a walk. All right, pals, you ready to get this started? Ready for the countdown? Come on, everybody, here we go. And let's ramp it up. Welcome back to day 64. Doing it again today. Just gotta keep on getting up and keep on putting one foot in front of the other, and eventually we'll get to Disneyland. Which I am, you guys know, I'm very much looking forward to it. So I hope you guys all had a chance to find the new Muppet Show. I'm really interested to see what your guys' reactions to that show are as well. If you enjoyed it as much as I did, I'd love to hear about it. What your thoughts on it are. Chris and I were talking some more about it last night, and he was of the same opinion too, that he's like, and I swear to God, I didn't even prompt him on this. He just said, well, that's an awful lot of money to put into those sets and those puppets for just one show. And I said, yeah, I'm thinking along those lines as well. So anyway, get right into what we've been talking about for over a week now, and maybe finally get into is some of that concept art for Snow White. Concept art in general being what the artists will come forward with when an idea is presented to make an animated film with Disney. We have this idea for a story. What should the backgrounds look like? What should the characters look like? Or maybe there already are ideas of what everything should look like. Like we have this concept that everything should be super futuristic, or as in the case of Snow White, they wanted it to look like a Grimm's fairy tale. So, bring forward that sort of dark Black Forest kind of look to the entire movie. So what the concept art will do is create the background art and the overall art style of an animated movie. It colors the rest of the story. So what Walt wanted for Snow White was that Grimm's fairy tale kind of dark, foreboding kind of storyline with a princess who was exactly the opposite. She was the embodiment of light. So you can see in the final product that Snow White is moving through a world where she is the brightest spot in the scene. She's fairly simple in her facial features. It was to help bring that innocence forward. Also, that one of the things that happened with animating Snow White herself and the Evil Queen and all of the human characters is that this was the first time that a full-length animated feature was being brought to the theaters. It was also not as common for animated characters to be human. So we saw a lot of things from Silly Symphonies where it was trees and it was bunnies and it was a lot of different types of animals, and anything that was human was conceptualized. It wasn't meant to look very human. So there weren't a whole lot of artists who specialized in trying to make animated people that looked like people. So what we see if we look very closely at Snow White, she's got very simplistic eyes, just a suggestion of a nose, these beautiful little lips that come forward in a very innocent and unmarred face. The original concepts of what Snow White should look like was kind of the everyday German storybook princesses. So they were blonde, braids, long flowing hair, your standard idea of a princess. And how she ended up with that short black hair and those big eyes came from when Walt Disney started bringing in new artists to bring new concepts. He brought in Grim Natwick, who was famous for Betty Boop. So he knew how to draw women in a way that was not silly, that was, Betty Boop was silly, but at the same time, she was iconic. She still is iconic. So when he came on, that's where the concept of her look changed. They started looking to actresses of the time. So film is coming out of silent movie era into talkies, and Walt was kind of looking for how to make his princess an it girl, which was something that was big at the time. It was a way of saying, I don't know what it is she has, but she has it. And so they were looking for this spark that Snow White would have that would make her sort of an it girl, where at the same time, she's, like I said, the light in a dark room and innocent and amorphous. So some of the actresses they looked toward were Janet Gaynor. There's also attribution to Mary Pickford and Hedy Lamarr for those sort of very iconic, innocent faces. There's also some interesting stuff as far as the concept for Snow White herself, animating what things looked like as they moved. They weren't just creating a static picture of a woman in a dress dancing. They were showing a woman dancing across a room with her dress flowing around her. And how do you do that? What they would do is take actual film. The actress would be in the sort of costume that was going to be animated. So she had Snow White's dress on, was like to the floor, and she had the same kind of shoes that Snow White was wearing. And her name was Marge Champion. What they would do is they would film her in her costume and maybe a few props around the room that she could move to and interact with. And they would film these sequences, and then they would animate to the filmed sequence. It is a technique that Disney still employed, like up until The Lion King and beyond, where they would bring real live animals into the studio so that the animators could really look at what does a lion's paw look like when it's laying over the edge of something. And so it's these reference photos and video and film that these animators could go back to and take the kind of the grand sweeping elements of the film that they'd taken and translate that into a swirling dress moving across a room while Snow White is dancing. That kind of stuff, I think it's so fascinating, the process. I know I'm muddying concept with process, but it all goes together, and it's so fascinating to me. And what really gets me when I start to do just even a little bit of research to give to you guys is I have like a list going now of things that I want to really do deep dives into and give you like actual really good videos on these subjects like concept art and of each movie, and not just me walking on a treadmill kind of pulling my random knowledge straight out of my head. It gets me excited for what I might be able to do once I'm done with this project. I've been learning so much, and I have so many ideas for what I would love to be spending time putting together. And I mean, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I don't think I'm creating bad content, or I wouldn't be doing it. But also, I'm ready to do something that's a little more in depth. Let's see what Disneyland's doing without us. I hate when they're doing stuff without us. And we'll open our Disneyland app. And I think you've already all heard by now that the Paint the Night Parade is back. I have some friends that were down in Disneyland the past couple of days and definitely saw it. So I'm excited to see it again when I get back down there. I think it's one of the best parades I've ever seen. So let's go ahead and look at our tip board and see what's going on in Disneyland today. So it is Friday, February 6th, almost 1:30 in the afternoon. And even on a Friday, man, we are looking good. Look at those standby wait times. Those are lovely. Haunted Mansion, 25 minutes. Indiana Jones, 25 minutes. Everything is kind of walk-ons. Matterhorn is 35. Mickey and Minnie's is at 50. Don't know what's going on there. That's a little high when you're looking at everything else. Oh, there you go, because Roger Rabbit's is down. So everybody who was in line for Roger Rabbit gets out of line, and the only other ride, well, it's not the only other ride, but one of the only other big rides in Toontown would be Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And it's definitely the closest ride for if Roger Rabbit is closed. Runaway Railway is your next ride that you get to. So that makes sense now because there's not a world where Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway should have a longer wait time than Space Mountain, which it does at the moment. So yeah, everything for a Friday afternoon looks pretty mild. And then we'll go over to DCA. And Goofy Sky School is at 30 minutes. Guardians is kind of doing its standard thing again. Seems to be kind of standard that it's sitting at 50 to 55 minute wait. And that by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the Lightning Lane is sold out. Incredicoaster has an hour wait, and their Lightning Lane is sold out. That's curious. I don't know that I've ever seen Incredicoaster sold out before. That's odd. At least not this early in the day. Maybe later on in the day, but yeah. Oh, Radiator Springs is temporarily down. That'll push. And Soarin' over California is temporarily down. So those are big. Those two are big people eaters that would push people out into the park and to other big attractions. So a lot of times, if you take the time to look at that tip board just to get your bearings, you know, I'm not saying that you have to have your nose in your phone the whole time that you're at Disneyland. But if you give yourself a moment to look at that tip board, just to be able to kind of get your bearings as to where people are at and why they're there, that tip board is a really good thing for doing that, because just what we did right there, we saw that Radiator Springs is down temporarily, and Soarin' is down temporarily. So, and we already know that Grizzly Peak is closed for refurbishment. So we've got 3 big rides that normally would have a significant portion of people in their queue, and all of those people are now no longer in those queues. They're pushed out into the park. It just helps you to understand maybe why the streets look a little busier and when some rides are down like that. So I don't know if that made any sense, but hopefully it did. And on that note, let's go ahead and take a look at where I'm at with those patches. Okay, so I have finished stitching all of this one down. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. And I just do this by eye. I just cut it close to the first shape, just a little bit, like 1/8 of an inch outside of the original stitching. Again, doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Now I'm going to get that center part. Just give myself a place to start. Clean up that edge a little bit, and there we go. So there's number 1. I will do these other 2 and then show you what those look like when it's all done. So we'll come back and finish that up. All right, there it is. Congratulations, pals, 1 mile. All right, pals, good job today. Thanks again for coming along on another 100 miles, 100 days on a $100 treadmill. I'm Tanya. There's my 70th anniversary years. I like to bring those out. I think they're cute. Here's my backyard, and I'll see you back here again tomorrow. Bye, pals. Man, I can't think today. Keep on trucking. Trying to figure out where the best spot is for me here today. I think that looks about right.